Welcome to the Comanche Moot Court Case, Red Elk vs. Comanche Nation Gaming Commission, presented in partnership with the World Affairs Council of Austin. In this case overview, Elias Red Elk was terminated after an internal audit cited unauthorized procurement practices. Red Elk counterclaimed, alleging the audit was a pretext for retaliation after he reported non-transparent vendor contracts. The litigants in this case are Elias Red Elk, the appellant, and the Comanche Nation Gaming Commission, or CNGC, the respondent. The factual background involves Red Elk blowing the whistle, followed by an internal audit used to justify his termination. After Red Elk filed a formal grievance, the CNGC moved to dismiss, citing sovereign immunity. The tribal court dismissed the case, ruling that the CNGC retained sovereign immunity and found no explicit waiver for wrongful termination. It also noted Red Elk failed to exhaust administrative remedies and that the commission has exclusive discretion. This scene displays the same trial court ruling, emphasizing the core reasons for dismissal: sovereign immunity, lack of explicit waiver, failure to exhaust administrative remedies, and the CNGC's exclusive discretion. There are two main issues on appeal. First, whether sovereign immunity was misapplied to shield internal statutory whistleblower violations. Second, whether the exhaustion doctrine created an unconscionable barrier to tribal judicial review, constituting a due process violation. The issues for review center on two questions. Did the trial court err by barring suits for injunctive relief when the commission acted ultra vires? And did the court err by requiring exhaustion when the internal grievance process is structurally biased and futile? The appellant's theory argues that sovereignty is not a shield for lawlessness. They claim the CNGC acted outside its authority, or ultra vires, and that the grievance process is biased, violating the Indian Civil Rights Act. Key precedents for the appellant include Santa Clara Pueblo versus Martinez, which holds that tribal courts enforce the Indian Civil Rights Act, and Larson versus Domestic and Foreign Commerce Corp., which states that officials acting ultra vires are not protected by sovereign immunity. The respondent's theory is that sovereign immunity and administrative autonomy are foundational. They argue CNGC's inherent sovereign immunity requires an unequivocal express waiver and that exhausting administrative remedies is mandatory. The respondent's arguments emphasize that preserving the integrity of tribal administrative processes is paramount. They contend there is no explicit waiver and that courts lack the authority to override the tribal council's administrative structure. The respondent's key precedents include Kiowa Tribe versus Manufacturing Technologies, which establishes that tribal sovereign immunity applies broadly. Iowa Mutual versus LaPlante reinforces that exhausting tribal remedies is mandatory before federal court review. The ultra vires debate contrasts the appellant's argument that the commission exceeded authority, stripping immunity, with the respondent's argument that the commission acted within broad discretion, protecting its actions as official conduct. Ultimately, the court must interpret key constitutional dimensions: the limits of administrative authority, due process under the Indian Civil Rights Act, fairness standards in grievance systems, and the separation of powers within governance. The exhaustion analysis requires the court to determine three things: is the grievance process structurally biased? Does the futility exception apply? And must exhaustion be required even when fairness is impossible? Students advocating on behalf of the parties must complete several tasks. These include writing appellate briefs, analyzing limits on sovereign immunity, applying the ultra vires doctrine, evaluating exhaustion and due process, and arguing administrative fairness under the Indian Civil Rights Act. Possible court outcomes range from immunity upheld and dismissal affirmed, to immunity upheld but exhaustion exception recognized. Other outcomes include applying the ultra vires exception and remanding the case, or deeming exhaustion futile and permitting judicial review. This moot court program on the Comanche Nation Supreme Court case is a valuable experience, organized in collaboration with the World Affairs Council of Austin. It prepares students for tribal, federal, and global legal leadership.